there comes a moment in life when you realize that you've been accepting less than you deserve, not because you're weak, but because you forgot how strong you are. You tolerated disrespect. You accepted crumbs of love. You stayed silent when you should have walked away. And somewhere in that silence, you lost sight of your worth. But let this be the moment you remember. You were never meant to feed in spaces that belittle you. You were never made to sit on shelves labeled bargain. Your value doesn't shrink because others can see it. It's time to rise. It's time to stop settling. It's time to remember who you are. This is your reminder. Never settle for less. You don't lose your worth all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You say yes when you want to say no. You let things slide just this once. You accept apologies with no change behind them. You shrink yourself to feed someone else's comfort. You downplay your needs, your boundaries, your truth, and every time you do, something subtle breaks inside you. You tell yourself it's not a big deal, that being easygoing is better than being difficult, that silence is safer than confrontation. But deep down, you feel it, that pull, that quiet voice asking, when did I start making myself small just to be accepted? You see, people don't devalue you randomly. They do it because at some point you let them. Not because you wanted to, but because you didn't want to lose them, or cause conflict, or feel alone. But here's the truth. The more you accept what you don't deserve, the more you convince yourself that it's all you're worth. And that's how it begins, not with one giant mistake, but with 1,000 quiet compromises. So no, your worth isn't lost. It's buried beneath patterns, fear, and people who got too comfortable with disrespecting you. But the moment you decide to stop settling, you start remembering. And when you remember who you are, you'll never accept less again. The most dangerous place to stay is in something that feels almost right. They're almost kind. They sometimes show up. They occasionally listen. And you tell yourself that maybe, just maybe, this is enough. But almost enough will drain you more than being alone ever could. It keeps you stuck in limbo, waiting for someone to rise to the love you deserve, hoping they'll finally see your worth without you having to beg for it. And in that waiting, you begin to doubt your standards. You wonder if you're asking for too much. You start settling for crumbs, calling them meals. But here's what you need to hear. You don't exist to be someone's backup plan. You don't exist to teach someone how to love you. And you certainly don't exist to survive off almost. Love should feel safe. Support should feel steady. Respect should feel consistent. If someone's presence brings more confusion than clarity, more anxiety than peace, more guessing than knowing, that's not your person. That's your test. The truth is, almost enough is still not enough. And the longer you stay, the harder it gets to walk away. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck in almost. You get to choose again. You get to say, I want more. I deserve more. Because you do. People don't settle because they're weak. They settle because they're tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of hoping. Tired of being disappointed. So when anything comes along that feels better than nothing, they hold on, even if it's not right. even if it doesn't feel safe, even if it costs them their peace, because deep down, there's a fear. What if this is the best I'll ever get? What if I walk away and end up with nothing? And that fear, it makes people trade their worth for temporary comfort. But here's the truth. Loneliness is Hades, but settling is soul-deep erosion. It doesn't just steal your joy. It rewrites the way you see yourself. It convinces you that almost is all you'll ever get. And one day, you look in the mirror and don't recognize the version of you that stopped asking for more. But know this, you're allowed to want real connection. You're allowed to want depth. You're allowed to want love that doesn't come with disclaimers. Don't let fear trick you into settling. Don't let impatience trap you in something that drains you. You deserve a life that feels aligned, not one that just feels less lonely. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is let go of good enough so you can make space for great. Every time you downplay your greatness to make others feel comfortable, you chip away at your power. Every time you hold your tongue to avoid making waves, you silence your truth. Every time you dim your light so you don't outshine someone else, you forget that you were meant to shine. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. When you laugh off disrespect, when you let mediocrity slide, when you say it's fine even though it's not, you start adjusting yourself to fit spaces that were never built for your full self. You make yourself smaller so others don't feel insecure. You carry the weight of keeping the peace at the expense of your own. But here's the cost of dimming your light. You lose visibility to the people who were meant to see you. You lose alignment with the life you're meant to build. And worst of all, you lose connection with your own fire. You weren't born to be digestible. You weren't born to shrink, to please, or to blend in. You were born to take up space, to speak truth, to lead with light. And yes, some people will walk away when you stop dimming for them. Let them, because the ones who are meant for you, they won't be blinded by your shine. They'll rise with it. So stop dimming, start glowing, and let your light remind you, you were never meant to settle. Self-worth isn't loud. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply walks differently. Self-worth says no without guilt. It walks away without drama. It doesn't chase, prove, or perform. It knows that love isn't earned through suffering. That presence isn't how it's chosen. That peace isn't something to sacrifice for the sake of being nice. True self-worth is quiet confidence. It's in how you carry yourself when no one's watching. It's in what you no longer tolerate. It's in the way you stop explaining and start deciding. You don't argue with people who refuse to understand you. You don't beg for the bare minimum. You don't overstay in places that drain you. Instead, you build boundaries without apology. You raise your standards not out of pride, but out of clarity. You protect your energy like it's sacred because it is. Self-worth doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you aware of your value, aware of your time, aware of who you are when the noise fades, and you finally hear your own voice again. And once you get that back, that quiet knowing of who you are and what you bring, there's no going back. You don't settle, you don't shrink, you simply stand, fully, firmly, unapologetically, because when you know your worth, everything around you starts to shift to match it. If self-worth is what you believe, then boundaries are how you prove it. You can say you love yourself all day long, but if you keep letting people cross lines you never enforce, lines you keep moving just to avoid tension, then what you're really showing is that their comfort matters more than your peace. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors with locks and you hold the key. They don't push people away. They reveal who's willing to meet you with respect and who was only staying because access was free. When you start setting boundaries, some people will resist, some will guilt trip you, some will leave. Let them, because anyone who leaves when you ask for respect was never respecting you in the first place. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time, your energy, or your heart. You don't have to be available just because someone calls. You don't have to explain yourself just to make others comfortable. A boundary says, "This is where I end and you begin. This is what I allow and what I won't tolerate." And when enforced with clarity and calm, boundaries don't push away love. They protect it. They preserve you. So if you want to stop settling, start here. Start with one boundary, then another, and keep choosing yourself over and over again. Because boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred. One of the greatest acts of self-worth is knowing when to walk away, not because you're angry, not because you're bitter, but because you've grown, and the space you're in no longer fits who you've become. Too often, we stay too long, hoping things will get better, convincing ourselves to hold on just a little more, making excuses for red flags, softening truths that cut too close. But here's the truth. If you have to beg for consistency, it's not love. If you have to shrink to stay, it's not alignment. If you have to lose yourself to keep them, it's not worth it. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's a declaration that says, I love me too much to stay where I'm not seen, valued, or growing. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will be lonely at first, but peace always feels unfamiliar when you've lived too long in chaos. And when you do walk away, you create space. Space for healing, space for clarity, space for the people, the opportunities, and the love that actually match who you are. You don't have to make a scene. You don't owe anyone a grand explanation. You just have to choose you. And remember, not everyone you lose is a loss. Sometimes, walking away is how you return to yourself. When you truly know your worth, you stop chasing things that were never meant for you. You stop auditioning for roles you were born to lead. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop apologizing for your standards. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, love differently, because when you know who you are, you no longer seek permission to be that person. You show up fully without shrinking. You expect respect not out of entitlement, but out of alignment. You stop settling for potential and start choosing presence. Suddenly, conversations change. Your circle gets smaller, but your peace grows deeper. Your decisions become clearer, and your confidence stops needing applause to feel real, because now it's rooted in knowing that you don't need to prove you're worth. You only need to protect it. You don't entertain relationships that make you question your value. You don't stay in rooms where you feel tolerated instead of celebrated. You don't beg for love. You become love. You embody it. You attract it because you radiate it from within. This is what happens when you stop settling. Not only does your life change, you change, and that version of you, the one who stands tall, clear, and grounded in self-worth, that's the version the world's been waiting for. You were never meant to be hidden, never meant to be tolerated, never meant to be someone's second choice. You were meant to take up space, to speak with clarity, to walk with power. And the moment you remember that is the moment everything starts to shift. No more shrinking, no more begging, no more settling. You are not a discount version of greatness. You are the original, the one and only, and that is enough. So from this day forward, hold your head higher, speak your truth louder, stand your ground firmer, and whenever you forget your worth, come back to this truth. You don't have to prove it, you just have to live it. This is Lessons Legacy.